Hey, welcome back to Dad Space, the podcast for dads by dads. My name is Dave. I'm glad you're here. Thanks for pressing play. Thanks for dropping by. I've been waiting for you here patiently to come and press play on this episode, and you're here. Makes me happy. Today, there's a lot of talk about toxic masculinity and what that is and how it shows up in life. What's the opposite of toxic masculinity? What is it? Some people say it's heroic masculinity or just simply humanity. We talk about it here on the show. Curious your thoughts on this one. But for our boys, dads, what we can train our boys to know and do as they grow up and grow into teen years and on, how we can instill in our boys to become great men. Thanks for pressing play. Let's jump in. So TikTok's done it again. Sent me another suggested clip for Dave to watch, and wow, caught my attention. Scott Galloway was on The View, a show that I wouldn't typically watch, but they had him on as a guest, and he was talking about masculinity. He was talking about interesting things that caught my attention was the fact that in today's world, a woman walking down the street in New York or on the subway, and a man or a group of men walking towards her would make her in the moment, in some cases, quite uncomfortable. And fear and trepidation and all that kind of roll in as this woman is faced with this situation where unknown men or a man is walking towards her and moving to the other side of the street or something. And that seems to be a default. And it's like, how did we get here? There's a lot of stuff to unpack around that just alone. There's a form of masculinity that people push back on being masculinity framed in the idea of being aggressive, controlling, emotionally closed off. The opposite of that is a masculinity that's more secure in oneself, that communicates in more healthy ways, vulnerable, and caring for others. And when I listened to Scott Galloway talk on The View, I kind of picked up on some of these things when what he was saying, and it made me think, for the sake of our boys, as we raise boys in our home, specifically, for them to grow up with this knowledge and in practice, and for you as a dad to model this. I wish I knew this more when my boys were young. They're all adults now. But if I could rewind the tapes and hear this episode when my boys were young, it might have shaped even more directed teaching and modeling for me as a dad. If I could rewind the tapes, I can't. But if I could, I'd probably rethink and be even more intentional with, again, how I model the treatment for my wife and my daughter and women in general, and also teaching my boys how to show up in this world in a better way. Again, fighting back and pushing back against masculinity wrapped in aggressiveness, controlling, emotionally closed off. The traditional, maybe more archaic view of masculinity. I want my boys to, again, be more positive, more healthy and vulnerable, all the things we talked about. Toxic masculinity is often associated with dominance and aggression and emotionally insensitive, but the other side of it emphasizes more traits of honesty and openness, empathy, and willingness to protect and support others without resorting to harmful behavior. It's an interesting dichotomy here as you look at these two and see how they play off each other and the opposites. in what we're talking about. It also, this better version of masculinity, this more healthier, heroic masculinity, is all about striving for personal growth, building healthy relationships, contributing positively to family and to community. That's what this show's about. And I just think that as I listened to Scott and him go through this, it made me think. And when I saw this, I thought of you and I thought of our time together, and I wanted you to hear these words from The View and hear Scott talking on The View. It's just a clip. So what I'm going to do is you're going to get to hear this twice, because I know you're doing something else right now, and the idea of you trying to take all this in is a little bit much. So I'm going to play it for you twice. I'm going to play the entire thing without cutting it up. It's just, here's the clip as I saw it. I'll put a link to TikTok as well, so you can, if you're on TikTok, you can watch it. But I'm going to put the whole thing out first, and then I'm going to do it again and break it. He has 3 main points that he covers in here, and I'm going to break it down into 3 chunks, play each chunk separately, and then jump in to kind of add a little bit of how I, as a dad, would approach this. And the 3 chunks that he covers are that men, the three key pillars he talks about, that men are providers. They're all P's, by the way. Providers, procreators, and protectors. And he breaks it down for us in these 3 key pillars. So again, I'm just going to play the whole thing through all the way through, and then I'm going to do it a second time and break it down into those 3 key pillars: provide, procreator, and protector. Okay? So here's the entire clip. I'll see you on the other side.
I think we can get, for young men, I like the idea of restoring an aspirational vision of masculinity that can serve as a code. And I don't think there's anything wrong with leaning into your femininity or your masculinity if it feels natural. And for me, masculinity is, and I'm open to criticism here, this is a tough one that triggers a lot of people, but I think the 3 pillars are provider. I think every man at the outset of his career should assume that he needs to take economic responsibility for his household. And by the way, sometimes...
Or at least for himself. Yeah.
And sometimes that means getting out of the way of your partner who happens to be better at that money thing and taking up the slack in other parts of the household.
But not being mad about it.
And be supportive.
Yeah.
My partner, when we had kids, was working at Goldman, making more money than me, so I tried to step up. That's also being a man. 2, and this triggers people, being a procreator. I think wanting to mate, that fire of desire, can be channeled, if it's channeled in the right ways, to making you a better man. Making you kinder, making you stronger. For God's sakes, thinking about how you dress, showering for God's sakes. Being persistent, initiating contact. The scariest stat I have read is that 51% of men age 18 to 24 have never asked a woman out in person. And surveys show, distinct to what the media tells you, the majority of women still want men to initiate romantic contact while making them feel safe. Yeah. 3rd pillar. You're a protector, right? Your default operating system is you protect. If you think about the most masculine jobs, cop, fireman, military, what do they do at the end of the day? They protect. Your default should always be protection, right? It breaks my heart. And then in New York, if you talk to women, a lot of them say they don't feel safe on the subway. Or if they see men walking down the street that cross the sidewalk. From an early age, we got to teach our boys that the transition to manhood means your default operating system is protection. And it's not just physical. It's if you hear people criticizing others behind their back, your default is to weigh in and defend. You may not agree with the transgender community. You may not agree that corporations need to have a 3rd bathroom. You may not believe in gender affirmation. But when you see a group being demonized, your default setting as a man is you move to protection. We are providers, we're protectors, and we're procreators. There is nothing wrong with masculinity. It is a wonderful guidepost. Lean in. We just need to redefine what it means to be a man. You add surplus value. You create more tax revenue than you absorb. You protect people. You witness their lives. You register more complaints than you actually complain. And if you leave this earth having given more than you've taken, then you leave this world as a man. That is what it means to be a man.
Now that, I like how he wrapped that up and kind of brought that back. What are your thoughts as you hear that? Again, we're going to break it down into those 3 key pillars again, but your initial response, how do you feel about that? as I listened to that, especially like the stuff about like the third bathroom and gender identity and all of these things, the idea that men are protectors, not just physically in the, pushing people back and protecting our family and all that. It's when people, again, like he said, talk behind your back or tear people down. Men need to be the people who support others and protect others. So I'll give you a little example. It's not about protecting, it's about kind of helping somebody understand who they are and how they show up in this world. At work, last night, I work a night job, overnights. And I work in kind of this space where at the end of our shift, we have to take our tools, like our RF guns and our printers and all that stuff, back to the main office. And we take them in and they sign them back in and we leave. So the gentleman before me, young guy, great guy, he took his stuff in, handed it in, and he was coming out of the office, passing me, walking away from the office. I'm walking to the office, and I'm walking into the room where there's employees that are there every morning, and they're talking about the guy who just left. And I'm walking into this conversation, and it's not a bad thing. It was a good thing. They were like praising within themselves how great that guy was that just left the room that I just passed in the hallway, and saying how much they like this guy and how happy he makes them feel. He's got a great smile. He's just so kind. And they're just going on and on and on. And that's the conversation I walked into. Unbeknownst to this person who left the office and had no idea what they were saying about him in the moment, they were just praising on him without him being there and the impact that he has on them. And I walked past him. He went back to his station. I went to my station. And then I stopped and went, he's got to know. And in that moment, I had a choice. Like, I have things to do, but I'm going to go tell him what he does not know. I'm going to tell him what happened after he left the office because he had no idea. So I walked over to him and he pulls his earbuds out. He looks at me like, what? So I tell him exactly what happened and what they were saying about him after he left the room. And I said, I just want you to know that you're having an impact on people and they really like you. And you could see we talk about your countenance, like the look on your face, your energy, whatever you want to call it, completely changed in front of me from being focused on work to soaking in what was happening in the moment, that people were talking and speaking well of him, and he was completely unaware. And you could see him change. Now, it's not like I was protecting him from something, but I wanted to invest in him in the moment so that he understood that the way he shows up in life is having an impact. I wanted him to know that because I don't know if he knows that on a regular basis. And I felt, as a man, I was compelled to tell him that message. And whatever happens with that, happens with that. I can't control that after. But I saw he was lighter when I walked away. It was very, very interesting to see that unfold. And I think that's a moment, again, I'm not protecting him from something, but I wanted him to know in that moment that his life mattered and people really appreciated what he does and how he shows up. Now, when was the last time you were prompted to protect somebody's honor when they were saying something bad, and they're not even there to defend themselves, or they're saying something great about them and they'll never know? When was the last time you were in that situation and what did you do with it? Did you just throw it away or did you jump on the opportunity? I'm not bragging here that, oh, look at me, I did something great by telling him all this. It's just in the moment I was so compelled and I almost shut it off. I almost defaulted to, he wouldn't care. I got stuff to do. I don't have time to walk over there and tell him this. But it was this nudge, this little gentle push, kind of tap on the shoulder. Just go tell him. And I push back. I'm like, who cares? Like, who really, does he think this guy's going to care? I think I've talked to him a few times. Do I know him inside? No, I don't know him. Like, we're not like hanging out, but I was compelled to go tell him. So my question to you, as we kind of jump into breaking down these 3 pillars, is the next time you feel compelled to stand up and defend someone's honor, you know, the person that gets picked on at work, or a family member that's struggling, or your kids or something, your best friend, and people are talking trash behind their back and you're in the room, and you're getting that nudge to be like, hey, come on now. You're going to do something, but you're going to protect their honor, as Scott talks about in that clip. Or you feel the nudge to tell somebody when somebody's being celebrated and they have no idea. What are you going to do with that? Are you going to act, or are you just going to let it slide like you might normally do? I think it's time for us to be intentional. And that's why I love about Scott's clip, is that he really does break down these 3 key pillars. And I want to kind of break them down again with you again. So I'm going to cut this up into 3 chunks now. You've heard the whole thing. Let's do it one more time and kind of expand a little bit more on Scott's 3 key pillars and jump into this. So here we go. For young men, it's valuable to restore an aspirational vision of masculinity, one that can serve as a more positive code of conduct for men, for you as a dad, and for your boys as they grow up. Embracing their masculinity depends on what feels natural, and it's perfectly valid. When it comes to masculinity, there's 3 key pillars that stand out: being a provider, a procreator, and a protector. So let's jump into Scott's first section around provider, and then we'll come back and circle back on this as well. So here's Scott.
I think we can get, for young men, I like the idea of restoring an aspirational vision of masculinity that can serve as a code. And I don't think there's anything wrong with leaning into your femininity or your masculinity if it feels natural. And for me, masculinity is, and I'm open to criticism here, this is a tough one that triggers a lot of people, but I think the 3 pillars are provider. I think every man at the outset of his career should assume that he needs to take economic responsibility for his household. And by the way, sometimes...
Or at least for himself. Yeah.
And sometimes that means getting out of the way of your partner who happens to be better at that money thing and taking up the slack in other parts of the household, and be supportive.
Yeah.
My partner, when we had kids, was working at Goldman making more money than me, so I tried to step up. That's also being a man.
See, no, I like that. I like that we as men don't always need to be the answer to every question. We can be a supportive person. And if our partner makes more money than we do and has a better position or more education or more opportunity than we do, it shouldn't be a sign. It shouldn't be a competition. It shouldn't be like we're failing as a man because our partner is excelling. It should be something we celebrate. We're here to support each other and to be there for each other. My wife's professional position is way higher than what I'm doing currently. There was a time when I was in, I would say, more of a spotlight position with a lot of notoriety and options and opportunities, where my wife Jen was kind of more in the background, and now she's in the foreground and I'm in the background more. And it's this loving, caring relationship where you're okay moving into that supportive role. I love seeing my wife move forward and seeing all the great things happen for her. And if I wasn't currently in my role and where I'm at in life, things might be a little bit different or even harder for her to succeed in what she's doing, because I might be making it difficult for her based on the way I'm showing up. So it's nothing about kind of figure out our roles. It's just the fact that I need to celebrate her, and she's doing so well in that. So be okay with that in that role. That's something that we as men need to understand, that we're going to find these times in our relationships, in our home, where we're wrestling with the whole provider aspect of all of this. Men should really consider taking economic responsibility for themselves and for their households, especially early in your career. Sometimes this means being the primary earner. Again, like I mentioned, there was a period of time where I was making considerably more than my wife, Jen. And there's other times it means supporting your partner who excels in a role that they're in by contributing in other important ways at home. True masculinity includes supporting your partner and stepping up whenever needed. And I really like that part as one of the first in the 3 pillars here around masculinity and a healthier version of masculinity. The next part was around the procreator role that we have as part of these three pillars. And we kind of get into this conversation, and he leads us kind of here in this way. Listen to what he has to say here again.
2, and this triggers people being a procreator. I think wanting to mate, that fire of desire, can be channeled, if it's channeled in the right ways, to making you a better man, making you kinder, making you stronger. For God's sakes, thinking about how you dress, showering for God's sakes. Being persistent, initiating contact. The scariest stat I have read is that 51% of men age 18 to 24 have never asked a woman out in person. And surveys show, distinct to what the media tells you, the majority of women still want men to initiate romantic contact while making them feel safe.
Okay, so did you get that? No? Okay, one more time. Pay attention. Pay attention to this, guys. This is very important here. Just one more time.
And surveys show, distinct to what the media tells you, the majority of women still want men to initiate romantic contact while making them feel safe.
Do you make your partner feel safe? Do they feel safe with you? Really? Like, think about this for a second. This is really, really important. As he's talking about here, the drive to seek romantic connection can be a force for personal growth if it's channeled properly and positively, helping us as men to become kinder, stronger, and more attentive to ourselves. Take a second, look at yourself right now. Are you wearing yesterday's clothes? Did you shave today? I didn't shave today. See what I mean? To be more attentive to ourselves and to others. Simple acts like taking care of our appearance, having a shower, putting on some deodorant, like doing the basics, which seem to fall off after a while. Just, that's so important for us as men. We need to take care of ourselves. And despite changing social narratives, many women, still appreciate when men take the initiative in a respectful and safe way. Am I talking about you or am I talking to you? Where do you fit here? The third part, again, that he covers here in this short clip was our role as men, healthy masculine men, in the protector role. And this I found really interesting as well.
Third pillar. You're a protector, right? Your default operating system is you protect. If you think about the most masculine jobs, cop, fireman, military, what do they do at the end of the day? They protect. Your default should always be protection, right? It breaks my heart. And then in New York, if you talk to women, a lot of them say they don't feel safe on the subway. Or if they see men walking down the street, they cross the sidewalk. From an early age, we got to teach our boys that the transition to manhood means your default operating system is protection. And it's not just physical. It's if you hear people criticizing others behind their back, your default is to weigh in and defend. You may not agree with the transgender community. You may not agree that corporations need to have a third bathroom. You may not believe in gender affirmation. But when you see a group being demonized, your default setting as a man is you move to protection.
So picture the Secret Service for you in America, a bodyguard, a bouncer, the people with the little earpiece and the little and they're talking in their sleeve. and they walk out ahead of somebody and get them safely to their vehicle. That type of protection, and not always physical, emotional, spiritual, whatever. We are to stand up for people who are being treated poorly. Back to my gentleman I work with at work. Again, it wasn't a situation where he was being treated poorly. He was being praised and he had no idea. We need to step up, and we need to be a protector of those who don't have a voice, who are being trampled on, who are being hurt. And to Scott's point, even if you don't agree with whatever it is that's going on for that person, that's irrelevant. When you see somebody being mistreated, it's our job to do something. Now, I'm not talking about being a vigilante and becoming some Cape Crusader who does stuff at night like Batman or something. I'm talking about people who just show up and go, in that meeting, you talk down to that person. I don't think that's right. You have mistreated this person. You are not treating this person well. And you become a voice for people who do not have a voice in the moment. That's what we're talking about here, and that's what I really love that he brought this out.
We are providers, we're protectors, and we're procreators. There is nothing wrong with masculinity. It is a wonderful guidepost. Lean in. We just need to redefine what it means to be a man. You add surplus value. You create more tax revenue than you absorb. You protect people. You witness their lives. You register more complaints than you actually complain. And if you leave this earth having given more than you've taken, then you leave this world as a man. That is what it means to be a man.
Can you hear the passion in his voice? Like, come on, right? In this protector role, the core aspect of masculinity is the instinct. It's internally, it's your instinct to protect, not just physically, but also standing up for those in social situations in the world, whether it's ensuring people feel safe in public or defending those who are being unfairly criticized or mistreated. Men should default to a protective stance. This extends to advocating for anyone who's being marginalized, regardless of your personal beliefs. That's a filter that you need to be able to pause when you see something happening to somebody who doesn't look like you, think like you, act like you, talk like you, any of those things. We as men, in a healthy, masculine way, are not just throwing our body weight around, but we are standing up for people who need help. Ultimately, masculinity can be a positive guidepost for us and for this world. If you strive to give more than you take, contribute to your community, and protect and support those around you, modeling this for your boys as they grow up, you embody the best of what it means to be a man. And these are lessons your boys need to learn. Your boys need to understand that women aren't here for us to control, to manipulate, to gaslight, to direct. They're not here for us in that way. Women are here as a support, and we are a support for them, and we work together. And as our boys grow into teenagers and into men, they need to understand their role is not to be one that takes, but one that gives. Imagine a world where girls and women of all ages do not have to hide in fear or move to the other side of the road or hold on to their belongings on a subway tightly as someone comes onto the train that makes them feel uneasy. Imagine a world where men not just look out for women, but look out for kids and look out for seniors and look out for other men. And we're here in a way that promotes a healthy view of masculinity. where we stand up for people who don't have a voice, who can't protect themselves or can't do what they need in that moment. That's a hero. That's something we can raise our boys to become, instead of men who suppress their feelings, hide themselves off from the world, go internal instead of being external, and deflect when it's time to talk about who we are and how we can be better. I think as men, we should follow examples of people who are leading the way, take the things that we can apply, and put into place what works for us in the moment, and come back to things in the future and try to improve more and more. Whether it's reading, listening to audiobooks, podcasts, being in community, talking to your friend over coffee, it's us trying to be a better version of ourselves so that we can bring that home to our family, model it for our partner and for our kids. It's something that we can do and we can commit to. So I'm interested, what's your thoughts on the clip? What's your thoughts on what we discussed here and these 3 pillars that we as dads, as men, need to be providers, procreators, and protectors? Your thoughts? Reach out to me. I'd love to hear from you. Hey, thanks for listening to Dad Space. Thanks for hanging out to the end of the podcast. That's a great sign to wherever you're listening to this podcast, YouTube, Spotify, Apple, fill in the blank, that this was a good podcast to send people to. So simply by listening to this point of the podcast, you're helping the show grow. So good on you. Thanks for helping us grow Dad Space. If you want to help us fill our cups over at Dad Space, head over to dadspace.ca. Dadspace.ca, simple website, right? Dadspace.ca. You can fill up our coffee cup, which helps us then to keep moving forward with the podcast, and use our Buy Me a Coffee link over at dadspace.ca. Thank you for being here. Thank you for supporting the show. Thank you for coming back. And thank you for sharing, because the more dads we can help, the better. We're all here to help each other grow in community. That's what it's all about. And without you, podcast is pointless. There's no reason to do any of this. So you being here means everything. See you at dadspace.ca. Take care.